it's heartbreaking to see someone who went through puberty as a male and has the body of a male be able to absolutely blow away the competition, and you go into it with a mindset that you don't have a chance.
Well, yeah, because they know that they're going to lose and they don't have a chance. That would be crazy frustrating in and itself. Now, the big thing that's been going around is transgenderism, gender dysmorphia, gender dysphoria, body dysmorphia, gender dysphoria. Trying to be accepting. Most people in a civilized society try to be as accepting as possible. The transgenderism I see as a stepping stone to transhumanism, and these are stepping stones into the great technological age when we're going to be living as cyborgs, and we're going to be putting different mechanical pieces onto it, and we literally will be able to become what we want and what we visualize and what we think, what we create. The metaverse, Facebook, is kind of the first steps into that. And virtual reality is just an easier way of putting yourself into that persona. Like right now, people do that on Twitter. People do that in their video games. They live in their video game worlds. So they do become disconnected with what they feel like they're... hold on, let me see. Ah, damn. I thought I had a good trade there, but it got me. The metaverse does seem like one of the first steps towards becoming transhuman, at least psychologically. And now we always have the physical barriers, but that's what they're working on now. That's what all of these arguments about transgender rights are. People wanting to transition themselves from one sex to another. Where's that going to be whenever you want to transition to something? And now I'm not being hyperbolic at all. I'm just saying we realistically can look into the future to where you will be able to make these decisions for yourself. The technology will get better. And how are we going to handle this as it goes? Now, stepping into the transgender rights forum, and I see a lot of I've seen a lot of videos, and you see a lot of the mainstream coverage, and a lot of the mainstream coverage isn't exactly the way that people feel it is. You can see that the mainstream coverage is trying to make you feel some kind of way, usually more of a positive attitude towards the transgender athlete. And most people obviously have a hard time with that because man, woman, blah, blah, blah. And physically, if you don't think there's a difference between men and women, you are fooling yourself. Very, very obviously. Go to the gym and then you will see a big difference in men and women. And that is just what it is. That is just what it is. I've had personal trainers who did not believe there was a difference between men and women. And I'm like, I'm 2 times your size and I can lift 3 times your weight. But there's no difference. Well, there's a spectrum. Yeah, there's always a spectrum, but there's more of one than the other on on that spectrum, right? Or do you just eliminate that as well? So yes, there's a difference between men and women, and then you have Lia Thomas, spent majority of her life as a man, and then decided her senior year to transition over and spent 37 months on estrogen, testosterone blockers, taking estrogen, these types of things to make you more feminine. It doesn't take away, obviously it didn't take away the swimming ability. I mean, he went from ranked 465 to number 1. Now, when it comes to the hormones and all those other good things, I mean, you can have these discussions and you can talk about science all I want until you literally actually see it played out in front of you. And then we've seen how much Lia Thomas beat the other 2 Olympians, and you have to understand that there's just something not right about it. Not right about it. I mean, dude wasn't competing and then switches over, and you have to be supportive in these types of things. That's where it gets tough, because You have to be stern, and you have to understand that, no, you are sticking up for women's sports because women's sports already have enough problems as it is. They already don't get paid enough. They already don't have the respect as the men from the same sports, except for fighting. It seems like women fighting sports are pretty up to par with the men's sports. Like the women's fighting is just as entertaining as the men's fighting. I've seen people say that like women's basketball is not as entertaining, and different sports aren't as entertaining. I watch fighting's my sport, and I like watching fighting. But the men and women are usually entertaining in MMA. So that's not really a thing there. Now, I do not want to see a biological male go transgender and then get into the octagon, even though that has happened with Fallon Fox and different people like that in the past. But I'd rather not see it. And now you see a lot of people making jokes about, well, you want a man to do, you get a man to be better than a woman, or you want the woman of the year to be a man, or all the misogynistic jokes, all the, oh yeah, we don't like men, but here, you got to support this man coming in and destroying all the women. Where's your feminism now? How does feminism stand up to this? I would assume probably the early feminists are pissed off because men have found a way to wiggle their ways into their sports and start messing it up. And that does mess things up. Because there was a NCAA swimmer once rule change after missing out on finals to Lia Thomas. A Virginia Tech swimmer blasted the NCAA. And it's the NCAA. Let's not act like they're the orbiters of proper moral standings. They don't pay any of their athletes, and they make millions of dollars, probably billions, or even trillions. Little do I know. Rika Gigori, and this girl, apparently she lost her Twitter for putting her opinion out there, but it doesn't promote our sport in a good way, and I think it is disrespectful against the biologically female swimmers who are competing in the NCAA. Gigori said of the rule that has received considerable scrutiny since Thomas has smashed records in her first season competing at the collegiate level as a transgender woman. Gigori also placed blame on Thomas for her failure to qualify. The Virginia Tech swimmer said she felt the last spot to get into the finals. The final was taken from her because the NCAA's decision to let someone who is not a biological female compete. True. It is what it is. You could say, oh, well, she barely didn't get in there because, well, if she would have worked a little bit harder. Now, bullshit. We know what exactly happened here. You know exactly what happened here. A man is in there. Whatever you want to say, whatever hormones he's on, this is what it is at this point. And it's unfortunate, and it sucks that it's turning people away from each other like this, and everyone's making all the trans jokes now. Because I saw another one where they're calling Lia Thomas Aquamam instead of Aquaman, Aquamam. I'd like to point out that I respect and fully stand with Lia Thomas. I'm convinced that she is no different than me or any other D1 swimmer who has woken up at 5 a.m. her entire life for morning practice, wrote Gigori. On the other hand, I would like to critique the NCAA rules that allow her to compete against us who are biologically women. Yeah, they just do not have a chance. They did not have a chance. And that sucks for her. It's tough. And it's like, what's the answer? What really is the answer? One spot was taken away from a girl who got 9th in the 500 free and didn't make it back to the A final, preventing her from being an All-American. Every event the transgender athletes competed in was one taken from a biological female. And that sucks to be a biological female and you're preparing for your swims and you're trying to get ready and you have all your competition, you have all your competition scoped and you know what you have to do to get ready. And then all of a sudden somebody changes their mind. They want to change their sex. How serious it is or not, whatever you want to say about it, that is what happened. And now, how do you handle it? You decided to compete, and then you didn't. You can't compete. How do you compete against something like that? You can't. Not as a woman. Not as a woman. It's very, very obvious. It was very, very obvious. You see in the video, and you guys can see it anywhere. You can see it anywhere, but What is the future with this? What is the future? So now we have the transgenderism, we have transhumanism. You know, transhumanism's coming, and we know transgenderism isn't going anywhere. Now society will figure out how to handle it and how it's going to be regulated with the normal people, with the children and everything else, because there's a big argument with children taking hormones either to prevent puberty, and that's a whole nother discussion right there. Because then, would you say that Lia Thomas, though they felt like they were a girl majority of their lives, if they did that during puberty, would they still have some of the effects of being a man up until puberty? Probably. I mean, you do get higher levels of testosterone. It's just not fully released until you're a teenager. So who is to say? But I do understand that it gets a little ridiculous. And this says Lia Thomas. Now, this one right here was, I love it, because this said, we should be celebrating Lia Thomas just like we were celebrating Jackie Robinson. And if you guys aren't aware, Jackie Robinson was a baseball player who got into the MLB, Major League Baseball. He was the first black player who was allowed to play. But the thing is, he didn't decide to be transgender. He didn't decide to be transracial. He is black, and he was just dealing with what he was born with. So the variables are very different anyway. Cheryl Cookie, Purdue University professor of American Studies and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies. Oh wow, this must be a. Let me assume how well in touch she is with people. Sounds like another intellectual who stays in their bubbles and try to say all these fancy words that don't make sense to normal people. Women's sports are situated at a paradoxical intersection, wherein sex segregation is upheld through claims of biological difference. Yet equality is prefaced on being treated the same and given the same opportunities as men. Well, men aren't supposed to be in it. If we are to change this, we need to ask some important questions. How does one advocate for equitable treatment while also adhering to the notion of biological difference? If separate is not equal in the case of schools, bathrooms, restaurants, and other social institutions, can separate ever truly be equal in sports, in case of sports? Would gender-based discrimination in sports be eradicated if sports were gender integrated? Oh my God, dude. Why do you think they desegregated the fucking sports? Why do you think they did that? Or segregated them. Desegregated. Why do you think they do that? You don't want a biological man at 120 pounds fighting a biological woman at 120 pounds because it ain't going to work for you. It's going to be a hard fight for that girl. Going to be a hard fight. Obviously, variables change, but it's just a higher percentage. You're just getting a higher percentage. Those who oppose the inclusion of trans women in women's sports argue that trans women have an unfair advantage, competitive advantage, that as the result they will take away opportunities from cisgender athletes, which is literally what we are seeing. It's not even an argument. That is what we're saying. They're not just saying that. That is what's happening. According to the NCAA, these assumptions are not well founded. Yeah, because we can trust the NCAA. You know, I love how they always try to push to authority. They try to appeal to authority, but ain't nobody listening to that. It's NCAA. They're basically like fucking, they make money off of all of their student athletes. And now I know most of their sports aren't making a lot of money. They make enough money off of football and basketball. They make enough. And probably wrestling too. Moreover, there is a lack of scientific evidence that conclusively demonstrates a direct link between testosterone and athletic performance. A lack of scientific evidence? Holy moly. And I've been in athletics all my life, guys, and I've seen guys get on testosterone and get off testosterone, and they are always on it when they're on it. Athletic performance is influenced by a number of factors, says the non-athlete. and I'm just assuming, I can't assume that this person is an athlete. Most of the people who I've talked to who have these types of opinions have never actually played a sport. They have just been fans and talked about it on the outside, and they're not actually sports fans, and they don't understand exactly how all this works. So now you see it is pushed in a lot of these different websites. So I pulled up some of the mainstream YouTube pages that were covering them. I don't have it on my Chrome. It's on my Chrome, but they're all downvoted. They all have downvotes. They all are not. They all don't look good. They all don't look good. And it just seems like, okay, so now you're getting a good idea of where you can push the transgenderism. You know that there's a limit to the age of children that you can start pushing that stuff to. You know that there's a limit to having certain men be able to jump into the competitions with women, because now they don't even think that they have a chance. Now, how do you battle this? Because you want to still be accepting, because, I mean, who knows what the hell is going through your head, man? And if you feel like you're not even in the same body, that is such a crazy battle that you have to handle in your head that I can't even understand. Now, I've went through crazy battles in my head, but never thinking that I was in the wrong body. And that right there, you have to be sensitive to it. But we can't be sensitive enough to where it's to the detriment of everyone else. And it does seem like it is detrimental, because this person being number one, that means that number two was actually number one, and then number three was actually number two, and then so on and so forth. And then what do? Do we just get our own transgender girls to start coming in and competing with them? How do you make this work? How do you make it all work? Do you have a transgender league? Do you have enough people? Do you have enough transgender people to even create your own league in each specific sport? I don't even know if there's enough transgender swimmers to do that. Now, people can accept it, and if they accept it, then you got to run with the consequences, and that's what it seems like they're having a hard time doing. See, the girl in the article that I read earlier, she agreed to do the competition, but then after the competition, she realized that, oh no, there is no competition. I can't compete with them. So what can I do? What's the best thing that I can do? One of the best things that we can do, man, is be as accepting as possible, but stand up for what you truly do believe in. Because if you do not believe that this is fair, which I don't think that this is fair, let it be known. Tell people out there. If you're one of the girls who are competing against one of the transgender athletes, that's always a personal thing to you. But if you feel like it's not fair, then maybe you shouldn't be having the competition, and maybe you should convince others to boycott it until a reasonable answer, a reasonable conclusion can come. But it just doesn't seem like, either way, there's not going to be anyone happy with this decision. And you see it so vitriolic. You see it split so many people down the middle. What can we do? It's hard to. This is a tough one. This is one of those situations where we're very privileged to be having these conversations. There's World War III basically starting up in Europe, and we're over here talking about gender identity. So there's an appreciation that we should have for this, but the appreciation needs to come to where it needs to be regulated properly, to where the young ladies are not being taken advantage of because a transgender man, a transgender woman, wants to compete. Now, I'm sure that there isn't a lot of issues with transgender girls joining into men's sports, but when you flip the variables around like that, it gets hard. It gets hard. So what's the answer out there, guys? What do you do? What can you do about all of this? We do want to be accepting, and we do understand that sometimes people do have mental issues, but at a certain point, do you want to support that all the way until it's detrimental to society as a whole? Or do you nip it out, and then how do you keep everyone happy? That's the thing. I don't think we're going to keep everyone happy. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do to protect the ones you love.